Sup, freaks? This episode was brought to you by our good friends at River. The last few months have shown us that it's really hard to find a reliable partner in the Bitcoin space that can get you access to Bitcoin, help you purchase Bitcoin, help you mine Bitcoin, and help you send that Bitcoin to cold storage. Third-party dependencies like Prime Trust are security holes. Luckily, with River, they built their whole exchange. They built their infrastructure. They built their wallets. They built their multi-sig cold storage. Their Bitcoin that is held on their exchange is backed one-to-one in that multi-sig cold storage, though they do encourage you to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If you DCA, if you dollar cost average, you're not going to pay any fees on those buys. Other exchanges have insane fees and spreads on DCA purchases. You can avoid that using River. Go to river.com/TFTC, set up that account today, and pick your last Bitcoin partner, the most reliable one. River.com/TFTC. Enjoy this episode. We're rolling. Jose. We didn't call each other this morning, but I guess I guess we just decided green pants, blue shirt. It's time to go.
I think it's the look.
It is the look. I've been getting a lot of compliments. I'm not sure if you have as well.
Yeah,
because it's humid out here. I've got the terry cloth on to soak up the sweat.
That's smart. Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah, but this is a great event. Shout out to the Rod, Matt, Harry at Bitcoin Park putting this event together.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah,
really good.
When did you get into town, this morning or yesterday?
No, I got in yesterday night. Yeah.
How are your travels?
Good. It's always interesting going through customs as a Guatemalan, but no major issues, so we're happy.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I got molested at the Philadelphia airport on my way here.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had the alarm go off and they had to pat me down. It was not fun.
Yeah. I had a recent one where I was wearing these drawstring pants, but they had like
same
metal stuff, and I got felt up.
That's what happened to me. I had the drawstring pants on, and got flagged in the in the radar gun or whatever that is, that thing that microwaves you. Yeah, hands up. So what's going on? It's been what since?
Think like a year,
maybe even more, because I was in the back porch studio in my house, so that had to be like fall of 2021, early 2022.
Yeah, I think you were just getting into Austin, right?
Yeah, so it's been almost 2 years. A lot's happened since then.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole week here, the Lightning Summit, we're in Nashville for the Lightning Summit. That's why we're recording at the Bitcoin Park studio. Mm-hmm. That's one thing over the last couple of days, and just beyond this event, what I've been thinking, it feels like Lightning is reaching a point of maturation where it's getting possible to build cool things that actually provide utility to individuals and enterprises.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that.
Yeah. So what are you guys seeing at Ibex?
Well, actually, very interesting. We've actually started to see like a transformation in our customer profile, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So now, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know what we do at Ibex, we provide backend infrastructure to enterprise level clients that are looking to integrate Lightning capabilities into their products and services. So apps, and if you have, let's say, to give an example of what would be possible, right? So let's say you're Spotify and you want to change your subscription model into a pay-as-you-go model where you can actually charge fractions of a cent per second of song listened. You could contact Ibex, and we can help you integrate that payment system into your app.
Yeah, that's been like a big hot theme this week and last week, particularly because L&D announcing like L402 in their implementation with LangChain and Aperture. And again, it really seems like we're getting to the point where the Lightning ecosystem is at a point of maturation where it's possible to do this stuff. And like, what do you think is making it possible? Is it just liquidity profile of the network? Is it the tooling around the network? Is it people have been playing around with it long enough?
Yeah, I think it's just, playing around with it. So you need to get comfortable with the technology, but then also figuring out the weaknesses of the technology and addressing those weaknesses. So, there's two components to Lightning, right? One is let's call it the Bitcoin technology part, which is how do we interact with this protocol. But another huge part of Lightning is basically database management. So DevOps, right? And how do we get to a point where we're scalable enough, reliable enough, secure enough to, service commercial customers, like real, big customers? Because, payments is a 500, $600 trillion in volume per year. That's, almost $2 trillion per day. So, and your technology to move that amount of money has to be bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
And we got to get our customers, comfortable with this. And so that's kind of our sandbox, right? Because our thesis is that just like you don't necessarily run your own email server or you don't do your own cloud infrastructure, for Lightning at a certain level, you probably don't want to do your own Lightning infrastructure. Because somebody like Ibex, or we can do it better, faster, more securely, and for less.
Yeah. And so what are like the product KPIs that you pay attention to make sure that you're delivering that service? Is it mainly revolve around successful payments and failure rates? Is it the amount of money that can be moved? Combination of all?
Combination of a little bit of all, but a lot of it is just, like I said, very much kind of like, it looks a lot like a database management thing. So, uptime, transaction success rate, at least on our end. The interesting thing about Lightning, right, is that we don't necessarily get notified when a payment fails on our end, because the one that knows that the payment failed is the guy that's sending out the payment, not the person receiving it. We just understand that the invoice has not been fulfilled.
Yes.
Right. And if it's because, whoever is sending it doesn't have, the required liquidity, doesn't have, the correct channel management. And this is why I think Lightning really is more geared towards, this type of email cloud service type of structure, is because if you want to have guaranteed and reliable payments, you basically have to, dedicate yourself to making sure that your infrastructure is good enough. And so I do see, probably some people that are really interested in it are interested in managing, their Lightning infrastructure in-house. They're going to do it. But other than that, you're probably better off with somebody like Ibex.
Yeah. And what are the trade-offs that enterprises, individuals make by doing this? Because I agree, like, it probably doesn't make sense for everybody to go out, spin up their own node, create their own channel, liquidity.
Yeah.
What's the experience for like an enterprise coming to you and like?
Well, the trade-offs for enterprises. So we have to like differentiate here a little bit from the customer profile, right? So for enterprises, they're not much different than any other requirement they would need in adopting any other payments technology. So we go into the world of, compliance, KYC, all of that stuff. But, these are enterprises that are, they have to do it anyway, right? So we're not too worried about that. Where it gets a little bit trickier is at the individual personal level, right? And that's also why we don't like to onboard individuals onto Lightning. We're more geared towards, businesses, and we really operate kind of like behind the person that, delivers the service.
Yeah.
Right. And so these customers, they're used to this. There's no big trade-offs. If you have to go down, to it's that there's no privacy. But again, I am for no privacy for corporations.
Yeah. They don't need it. Right?
They don't need it.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what, and that's the beauty of Lightning too. Like, yes, there's like, who the corporation is and who you're onboarding, but
the rest of the Lightning network really doesn't have to know that they're receiving payments. So like you can't see that they're doing a bunch of flow and have some.
Yeah. Well, that and the beauty of Lightning is that also for me, and this is going back to the whole profile of customer changing. So let's say when we started off back in late 21, early 22, offering this service, most of our customers and people we had talks with were, either crypto businesses or wallets, exchanges, somebody that wanted to do payments with crypto or digital or whatever, right? Whereas today, most of our customers are more fintechs, settlement players, financial institutions, those type of customers that are looking for a better way to move money globally, to move value globally, which is super interesting to me because it's that realization that, okay, these guys are really paying attention to the technology and they're right to do so.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Spotify example of being able to charge customers per minute listen, per song listen, whatever it may be.
Per second.
Like, what else does this solve for enterprise companies? Like, that's just pure payment flow. But, like, how much does chargeback risk come up in the conversations you're having?
It's significant part. So a lot of the reason why we have this huge compliance, infrastructure set up, it's not even necessarily about, money laundering or KYC or anything like that. A lot of it is just, information flow. So SOC2 compliance and that type of stuff. SOC2 compliance, by the way, is a way of guaranteeing, the database integrity and that the information that you're exposing is not compromising anybody's privacy.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right? And so those problems really don't exist in Lightning, right?
No.
Because you don't know exactly who you're sending money to, or ideally you don't, or who you're receiving money from. Like your end customer knows, but us as, back-end infrastructure providers, we don't necessarily know or want to know because it lowers the risk, right? And so the conversations are tricky because it's a lot of changing of the mindset. Like you don't really need all of this stuff that you used to need.
So people think it's almost too good to be true. Like,
well, in a sense, and then the final settlement, right? Which is where we started the conversation, is it's really interesting to explain to somebody, listen, the thing is that in Lightning, either it was successful or it failed. And there's no in between. And being successful also means you paid the exact amount that was required. So I'll give you an example that we run into right now. And this is difference between on-chain payments and Lightning payments. Because Lightning requires you to generate an invoice, right? And say, pay me X amount. So let's say 10 million Satoshis for a concert ticket. I don't know.
That's an expensive concert. You're going to Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, it's a Taylor Swift concert, exactly. So anyway, 10 million Satoshis. If you don't pay exactly 10 million Satoshis, the payment just doesn't go through. So it fails. But if you pay the 10 million Satoshis, you're guaranteed those 10 million Satoshis are in the merchant's account and they can release the product, right? What happens with on-chain? On-chain, you can send whatever amount. And so, for some customers that we operate the on-chain payments, especially online, it's a pain because, we get like, they underpaid by 2 Satoshis. And it's a pain.
Yeah.
What
is that like? Like a thousandth of a cent, if that.
Something like that. It's a ridiculous amount. It's like we just go in, we send 2 Satoshis from our own back end and it goes through, right? But the customer experience is horrible. And that's why we really, want to move everybody, at least in payments, onto Lightning, especially at the retail level. Like For other type of transactions, there is a use case and an argument to be made for on-chain. But for anything retail, and I mean anything, it doesn't matter really the amount. You kind of want to have it be on Lightning.
Yeah, because the invoice is like, all right, pay this exact amount.
Yeah.
And send the exact amount.
Exactly.
And so these conversations with enterprise customers that you're having, they're, I would imagine, predominantly wanting to leverage Bitcoin for the final settlement and the quickness of the transaction, relatively low fees. Are any of them like holding any Bitcoin, do you think?
No. Well, not for anything other than testing purposes. So right now, also for anybody that doesn't know exactly how this works, when you go into that enterprise world, the first thing that happens is you get an RFI, right? So that's a request for information. This means that they are starting to kind of like look into the technology. They probably, bought some Bitcoin, transacted some Bitcoin on-chain, did some of this stuff. And after that, once the RFI, you submit it, once they choose a provider, then you go into do a POC, so a proof of concept of how this could work within their existing technology. If the POC, gets validated, then you go into, either an RFP or an RFQ, which is request for quote or request for proposal, where you do the final like economic proposal to the customer. And so it's a fairly involved process. Takes probably 12 months, maybe a little bit more, depending on how fast people want to move. But it's also, we're talking about multi-million-dollar investments, right? So, that's why they go through this whole thing.
And when they're going through the RFP or the RFQ process, are they seeing that like interacting with Ibex using Lightning as a solution, saving them on cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that actually happens during the POC. You can like tell pretty quickly. Now, the tough part for us has been, kind of when we go into the RFI, because everything right now pretty much is at RFI or POC stage. Very few deals have escalated past that, right? Because technology is just so new, right? Yeah. But what happens with Lightning is it really changes the paradigm of payments, especially global payments technology. At its core, Lightning, how we think of it, is it's a hyper-efficient settlement network. Check a hyper-efficient global settlement network, right? Which is very unique, and it changes payments completely because it turns it on its head. What do I mean by that? So traditionally, and right now, what is most efficient in traditional payment rails is to batch transactions. So what you want to do, let's say we're sending remittances. I want to collect as many remittances as possible, put them into a huge lump, right? And send that. So, $100 million or $10 million at a time, right? But Lightning, it's really more efficient to send smaller transactions. So what you want to do is real-time processing of, payments and global transactions. And it really has to change the way you look at how your business is structured if you're one of these traditional payment or settlement networks, right? Because it doesn't operate anything like what you're used to. But I think it brings great advantages. And as we move forward, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of these players kind of come to terms with this and understand it. And for me, it's kind of like the switch from batch, instruction processing that we had with computers in the early 80s, late 70s, right? Where it was mainframes and you would like group as much information and then push it in one batch transaction in the computer into, with the microprocessor, it became better to do real time, transaction processing.
Yeah.
And that changed the game completely. Like none of this that we're doing right now with technology would be possible without real time processing of transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're bringing that to commerce, like I can only imagine the new business opportunities that will be available.
Not only the business opportunities, you have to imagine just internally from a process perspective, like what you just described, in the company using the incumbent payments and financial system has to batch all these transactions. That probably entails them creating these processes, like you mentioned, where somebody's getting them all in an Excel file or database and spending time to line all that up and then push the transaction, like just having it happen automatically over Lightning.
Yeah.
Like you reduce all that workload at that operational point of their business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so it seems like companies that are doing a lot of international business are getting this quicker than maybe those that aren't.
Yeah, like multinationals, this is a huge pain point for them, right? But even beyond, let's say, multinationals, which are, one specific type of customer, really anybody that sends money globally, like even remittance operators, I can tell you, I know for a fact, are looking at this today.
Can you name any names or?
I'm under so many NDAs, Marty. I cannot say one more name. I've been advised. Like,
have to ask. Have to try to get that out there.
Yeah.
No, but as you're building this and getting this out to enterprises, I mean, again, the last time we spoke was probably a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. How's the state of the Lightning Network improved over that period of time? Is it easier for you guys to build?
Significantly.
Yeah.
Well, some of it is, the technology maturing. Some of it is also us maturing along with it. Working and playing around with the technology, you also find out a lot of stuff, right? And so now knowing where your value add is, exactly how it is that you operate, where you can go in and really help, these customers.
Yeah. And so where do you see this going? Obviously, we're in the early stages.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think's needed to really push the ball over the edge and get the snowball rolling, where it becomes like the point where every business is like, oh my gosh, we need to integrate this immediately?
Yeah. I think honestly, this will play out a lot like email at first, where the companies that first adopted email gained a significant competitive advantage, and then everybody noticed like, oh, we need an email. And then it happened again when, websites and e-commerce came along, where everybody at first like, oh, what are you saying, a website, right? Like, no, I have my brick and mortar store, and and eventually you either adopted this technology, and to the point that today, I think as a company, you set up your website first, and then you figure out about a commercial space, right? Or a physical space. I think it's going to follow more or less the same trajectory. The more visionary companies, probably not the incumbents, are going to be, the first to adopt technology. Those that are, let's say, like in second, third, fourth place, are going to be really incentivized to look at Lightning and say, oh, we can leapfrog.
Yeah. And that's, again, like the emergence of AI over the last 6 to 8 months. And now with L402, I mean, it's been out there, but having more robust tooling around it, like maybe not even like incumbent multinationals or payment companies specifically get into this, like the emergence and the convergence of Bitcoin and AI together. Seems like that could be a really interesting mix if these AI companies get it and realize the value it can provide them.
Well, this is super interesting, right? What you're talking about, because it actually touches upon something that I've been talking for a while now, right? That the main failure of IoT has been monetization, because it's really difficult to monetize, IoT stuff like smart bulbs and that type of stuff, right? But Lightning actually enables that to happen. And what's more, it enables these, let's call it machines, quote unquote, but devices, right, to actually send value from one to another automatically between them and do handoffs. So, things like, to go to an old tried and true example, is your electric car, if you have one, right? Pulling up to a parking space, and immediately, you start to stream a payment to the charger, right? Let's say we set up a wireless charger for the car, and it can start charging, and the second you drive away, it stops.
Yeah.
Without you having to do anything, right?
So is that like a potential customer for you guys, Tesla? You get into Tesla systems and they have wallets in the cars.
Yeah.
You can pull up and...
Definitely. That would be a potential customer. And but then you can also do it like with municipalities, right? With street parking. Anytime you park on a street, if you can tag the license plate, and your car establishes communication with a post, then it's give me a second here. Sorry about that.
It's busy, man. He's got enterprises calling.
And I really forgot to just...
It's all good.
But anyway, coming back to example, if we have these, just like, you can have like lamps, right, that are decorative, but also are the device that charges for the space, the parking space. Yeah. Automatically, you just park and go.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. Like, again, I've been talking about this the last few weeks. Yeah, I had Bellagio on actually last month or two. I had Bellagio on last month, and he really got me hooked on this idea of the machine payable web back in 2015 when he did it with 21 Co. And that was the whole idea is machines paying each other to do tasks, or to do tasks on behalf of humans. Like AI agents is a great example of that. You give an AI agent a prompt like, hey, I need you to book me a trip to Austin, Texas. I need my trip back to Austin. It needs to be under this price and on this date between these times. And then it just goes. And if you can give it a wallet with macaroons and a budget, and it can go out and do that, like just go on a website and talk to the machine on the back end of the airline and just pay. Like, think of the efficiencies that you gain in your own life.
Yeah. But when we're talking about this type of payments, size matters, right? In the sense that you sometimes need to go really low. And that's what always kind of is our problem today. And this is kind of what we're really solving for. What we're solving for is that, as our products and services become digital, they decrease in value, right? Because it's easier to make, produce content. It's easier to do this. You have a wider audience, and so what happens is we've come up with really inefficient monetization models. So ad revenue model, you're the product, prepayment model, which nobody likes because
you're not going to get the full value of what you're paying.
Exactly. And then the subscription model, which, while great for incumbents like Netflix, sucks for any newcomer because, the wall they have to scale is humongous. Like, you get subscription fatigue, right? And so, going low on payments, facilitating, nano transactions, so anything below 1 cent, can't be done with traditional payment rails, but we can do it on Lightning. And what's even more incredible is that we have final settlement for sub 1 cent transactions.
Yeah.
Which is mind-blowing.
No.
If you're in payments, you really like...
Well, that's the thing. Why do you think it hasn't caught on as quick? Because it's obvious to us as Bitcoiners, and obviously somebody who's building a whole company that can cater to these enterprises.
Yeah. Well, A lot of it is education and misinformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of narratives built around this technology that are holding true to this day, right? That, too slow, there's no use case, there's no need, all of this. But the truth of the matter is that there is great need.
Mm-hmm.
And technology evolves. It's not static.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I think as people start to realize that these narratives are not holding true, I think it's when we start to see this. And we're already kind of starting to see it, but there's a significant lag between, when, let's say, big corporations start looking at something and when it actually makes it to market.
Yeah. And so what do you think we can do better on the education and marketing side of Lightning, particularly? Because I had a call earlier this week with somebody just reaching out on behalf of 1031, like, hey, here's what we're doing, like, interested in Lightning. And he was like, Lightning doesn't work. Like,
put a wallet in their hands. Like, honestly, what works most for me is I don't even go and tell them anything. I demo the product, they see it working, and then they get interested. And then we can start to have a conversation of, this is,
what's happening on the back end.
Yeah. Like, how is that even possible? No, I don't trust you. And then you show them how, it really happened. It really got executed. And then, their eyes go like saucers.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that, by the way.
No, and for everybody who, there seems like to be a lot of impatience in the broader market who are looking at crypto broadly and seeing Bitcoin as a slow, dumb thing and Lightning as something they perceive doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Bitcoin going through its monetization phase with all the volatility, people are like, it's too volatile, it'll never be a stable store of value. But it's like, all right, this is a new monetary asset monetizing in real time. There's going to be some volatility. And then when it's Lightning, it's like, it's not widespread yet. It's like, well, there needs to be infrastructure build out, dev tools, companies. Like, it's not going to happen overnight.
Exactly. And, what's interesting is that I think wrongly, a lot of people conflate two things that are very different, right? Which is, one is, the store of value part of Bitcoin, but then the other part, which is what we're starting to do with Lightning, which is the value transfer mechanism of Bitcoin. And first of all, I don't think there's any asset out there that has ever been used as a store of value that is not volatile, like real estate, but people still use it, right? Gold, people still use it as a store of value. Fine art, collectibles, they're all used as store of value. Like, we don't go out and pay with a Ferrari, but it is a store of value, right? Now, as a value delivery mechanism, which is what Lightning brings to the table, is we don't care about the value of Bitcoin because we're in and out of transactions so fast that at the endpoints it could be like dollars and pounds or quetzales and pounds, and we just deliver the value, and whenever it leaves one point and gets to the other, it automatically gets converted, and it doesn't matter.
No.
Like, you just use Bitcoin as a super efficient payments network, and it's actually astonishing to see. So I'll give you an example we have, and I can probably send you a video so you can see it or share it if you want. But one of our clients, Osmo, he works in quetzales, so, which is the Guatemalan national currency. And so whenever a payment gets into his wallet, it automatically gets converted or can get converted into quetzales. Now, the interesting part of this demo is that he's using a wallet denominated in pounds, right? British pounds. And he's requesting $2. He receives the $2, which is equivalent for the guy that's sending it to £1.69. Receives the transfer immediately, gets converted into quetzales, the exchange rate delivers 15.47 quetzales into his account.
Mm-hmm.
The slippage of the guy receiving is only 0.3%.
0.3.
Yeah. The slippage of the guy that's sending it turns out to be somewhere around 3%, 3.4%.
Mm-hmm.
But bear in mind, this includes fees plus a FX rate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is between two currencies that don't have a natural pair. So if you wanted to send pounds to quetzales, you send $2 and then dollars to quetzales, which on average will cost you in FX 14%.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So this is a transaction that cannot be done on any other technology.
No. That's
just full stop.
20% of what that cost would be. Yeah. Just like 80%.
Yeah. No. And the size, right? You can't send $2 from the UK to Guatemala any other way.
No.
Like impossible.
Yeah. And it's crazy how I think people are beginning to wake up to what's happening to what you guys are doing. Companies like Strike and others like getting out there and really like, hey, no, you can use this as a payments network. Like you don't need to take the volatility risk of the underlying asset. And again, it's fascinating too. Like BlackRock's coming out and launching their ETF, and you have Larry Fink doing the rounds on media, and even these people are getting in. They think they know it. He's like, no, Bitcoin's digital gold. We're going to give people access to this. The people really don't understand the network side of it. And they really just focus on the asset. And when you combine the two, the asset and the network, particularly over the Lightning Network, it's insane what can be done.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the natural way of how things should progress, right? So any technology likes to scale in layers. It's the best way to do it. And why is it the best way to do it? It's because, there are compromises whenever you're maximizing for one feature or another.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, for a store of value, you have to make certain design decisions at the technological level that will make it a great store of value, right? And you see this with, let's go back. Let's not talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about gold. So gold was a great store of value because it had certain properties.
Mm-hmm.
But those same properties made it really slow. So, from the mining, so obtaining gold, right, to the transportation, because it's super heavy,
mm-hmm.
right? It was a pain in the ass to transport, right? And as our economies evolved and technology improved, and especially commercial technology like ships and navies and stuff, right? Gold wasn't fast enough. It was a great store of value, but you couldn't really commerce with it, and that's when paper money sprung up, right? Because we needed letters of credit.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we needed the letters of credit backed by gold was because gold was basically immovable
mm-hmm.
to all effects and purposes. Like, it's really interesting to me. You see these movies like, oh, we'll, take the money from Fort Knox. Like, do you have any idea what it takes to move that amount of gold anywhere? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? So paper was way more convenient. And, technology demands. And so gold scaled in layers. The problem with gold was that we got to a layer where it allowed for shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
So it allowed for me to, say I got 10 pounds of gold when I have 10 ounces.
Yeah. And that can't happen with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, right?
No.
And why, for anybody who's listening who may not be aware of why this can't happen on Bitcoin and Lightning, like how does it work so that you know that you're not rehypothecating sats on the Lightning Network?
Because any Satoshi that you want to move on the Lightning Network has to be committed in a transaction in the Bitcoin layer.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to have, let's say, 10 Bitcoin available to move or to transact with on the Lightning Network, I have to first commit them on a transaction on chain, think of it as an escrow system, right? So for me to move X, I have to commit X. If I become then, let's say, a bad player, I lose all the money committed. And that keeps me honest.
Yep. Loose incentives are a beautiful thing that Satoshi brought to us with on-chain Bitcoin at the protocol layer, and now using that concept and bringing it to Lightning is beautiful. And yeah, like anybody in a gold vault, you just have to trust that vault that they actually have the gold that they are issuing dollars on top of. And we found that they were issuing way more dollars in Bitcoin on Lightning. You can go verify on chain that, the Bitcoin is locked up in this HTLC. It's there, and you can only actually send it if it is there in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those that don't know, HTLC is hash time lock contract, which is basically a pre-signed transaction on chain.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm, what happens with pre-signed transactions is that if I'm a bad actor, right, anybody that's holding that contract can then execute it because it's already pre-signed and take the money from me.
Yeah. If you're a bad actor in the channel, your counterpart gets the money. You don't want to give your money to the counterpart. You want to keep your money.
Exactly.
So as you're interacting with these enterprises, are they providing any feedback that surprised you? Any feature requests that you didn't foresee that you were like, oh, this is actually pretty cool?
Well, honestly, what has surprised me, is just how heavy their compliance burden is at every level.
Yeah.
Like you start to understand, okay, this is why this is so hard to do today. Like why we cannot get beyond, let's say, T+1. T+1 means that settlement of any financial transaction happens plus 1 day. So you make it, and 1 day later it gets settled at best.
Yeah.
This is at best. And you start to, kind of really dig into this very weird world of payments. And that has been super interesting.
Yeah. And do you think as Lightning scales, it becomes more integrated with people's business processes, that the compliance departments will get smaller because there's not really too many boxes to check because it's, again, happening instantly? And
yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing of Lightning, right? Is that because it is more efficient to do smaller value transactions, the whole risk lowers significantly for the transaction. Not only from, let's say, the money laundering risk, because, nobody cares about a $5 transaction, right? But also from, the operational risk and the money logistics risk. Like, if you lose $5, so to speak, even though I argue in Lightning you cannot lose it, and this is one of the conversations we have with compliance people. Like, but how do we know that it happened? Well, if I try to fake it, I lose a couple million. So I'm not going to fake it.
yeah.
Right. But it lowers, liquidity requirements, capital commitment. And so your whole operation at every level gets de-risked.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, like just opening up, like with the incumbent payment system, a lot of capital gets locked up for a significant amount of time. And now with Lightning, since you have this instant settlement, it opens up a lot of capital that previously you couldn't put to work. And so, like, what does this do? I don't know if it's a rhetorical question, but like, what does this do for businesses being able to reinvest in themselves and go do R&D in a certain area or go hire more people because they don't have to lock up this capital in this weird Concanani payments system?
Yeah. No, it's like the efficiencies you gain are going to be significant. So imagine this. Any capital that you have committed, not only, let's say, costs in real time, but let's say you can probably, a business could generate a yield between, depending on if it's private or if it's public, anywhere between 8 to 20%. So that's right now your loss. How that gets, really brought down to, let's say, to earth. We don't know yet, whether they, are more efficient in hiring, expand their operations, or what have you, right? But the fact of the matter is there's 8 to 20% on the table that right now is just wasted.
It's the cost of doing business, right?
Yeah.
And it's from a capital efficiency standpoint, it's going to be insane what gets unlocked for companies and individuals globally, and especially in times right now. Like, I know we talked about this the first time you were on, like why we're in Bitcoin and why we're like passionate about this, but it does seem, sitting here today, July 2023, with everything going on in the world, like there is an urgency to move and get these tools into people's hands.
Absolutely. And I think, the sooner we can get into these more of, let's call it digital distributed, systems, the better off we'll be. And getting into, digital distributed money can only, help, let's say, make us more peaceful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the violence that's going on in the world today comes down to, people taking advantage of
well, it's the money.
The possibility that you can actually steal money from others by force.
Yeah, by force, or printing it, debasing it, and giving it out to your friends first.
Think of this, that printing money also can get it. The only way it can get executed is by force.
Yeah.
Compelling people to use your money allows you to print money.
Mm-hmm.
If not, the moment you start printing, people stop using.
Yeah. He's literally point a gun at you, say, "This is the legal tender. You got to use this."
And like,
no, I went to dinner last night. We were talking about this. It is insane. Because Matt and I are obviously public Bitcoiners with Rabbit Hole Recap, with this show, with Citadel Dispatch, with everything we're doing, and we do get that fear every once in a while. Like, oh, we're putting ourselves out there. Bitcoin's a pretty big affront to the government's control of money globally, and we just had this conversation last night at dinner. Like, it is insane that we have to like worry about this. Like, we have to worry about that we're like evangelizing a system that just allows people to send money to each other.
Yeah, but listen, me, that's probably on the other side, right? Because just by the nature of our business, we engage a lot with regulators, both on the private as well as on the public sector. I would venture to say 95, if not more, % of the people are just, guys doing their job, and they're not evil people.
Yeah.
They're like just, and they have some real concerns that we try to address. Like, okay, this is what you're worried about. So, criminal, whatever. Well, let's figure this out. Let's see how we can get around this issue. But also, what this gives us is an opportunity to really educate, right? And engage in these more philosophical conversations of like, listen, I understand what you're trying to do, but let's not throw, let's not solve for one people and then basically condemn half of humanity to poverty.
Yeah.
Right? Let's find another way to solve for this.
Yeah, let's weigh this trade-off. Does it make sense to be overburdensome from a regulatory perspective? Like, what is the positive EV on that compared to just opening it up and bringing people into this economy?
And then you also get into situations where, even regulators are like, it's touchy because, we like to say, listen, money's going to be digital pretty soon, but sooner than a lot of people expect. Like right now, to me, money is already digital because it's, 95, 97% digital. Only 3% of money is printed cash, actually, out there. This is globally, right? Well, what happens when we get rid of that 3%, which is not hard to do, by the way?
No.
Okay, are we going to KYC 5-year-olds?
kid that just wants to go to the corner store, buy some candy.
Right? Yeah, like you want to give your kid, you're a parent, you want to teach your kids about money, you give them an allowance, you give them whatever, right? They're 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Are we KYCing them? Because that's the question. Right. Or are we just excluding them and say, if you're a kid, you cannot touch money?
Yeah. Like in the CBDC world, like that's like everybody's talking about the rollout of this wallets. That's actually something I've never thought about. Like, are the kids going to get wallets? And if so,
yeah, well, how are you going to give money to your kids?
Yeah.
How do we solve that?
Yeah. That's the beauty of Bitcoin and Lightning. It's like, all right, just download this app and top them up.
Well, right now, but if regulators really like, put a gun to, companies like ours or Lightning companies, or even like, somebody that's been, pretty, I don't want to name names because I don't want to put anybody in hot water, but let's say any of the wallets that are out there that right now don't ask you for any documentation, very easily their local government could go and say, listen, from now on, if you want to continue to have your wallet out there, you're going to have to ask for a KYC.
Do you think that's going to happen?
It might.
I really hope it doesn't.
I hope it doesn't as well.
Yeah.
And, there's going to be huge workarounds and everything. But if we're talking about, having Bitcoin go mainstream and having this technology go mainstream, well, the mainstream is going to be okay with it, right? They already are, because it's what they're used to. But now we're involving, populations that really do become an issue, right? So let's take this, for example. The reason, let's say 50 to 70% of the world's population is either, unbanked or underbanked. It's not because, banks don't want to service them, or it's not because, we don't have the technology to service people. It's that right now it's not cost effective. Mm-hmm. And the more we push, KYC, AML policies down the throats of financial institutions, the harder it is to bank these people. So, you can't, and this is why I say, we like to sit down with regulators and say, listen, yeah, I understand this is what you want to work against, but know that the more you screw down this, the more people that you're leaving at the margins of the economy.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to service, customers. If it costs me, $5 to onboard you and your LTV is maybe 15, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to comply with the regulators and say, listen, all of you customers, I'm not. Good luck.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can't
serve you here.
Can't serve. No,
that's why. That's why we focus here and on RHR and Citadel Dispatch, like really driving home like KYC is the illicit activity, because at the end of the day, it's not really effective. Like, criminals are going to criminal, and we need to get out of this morass of the last few decades that we've been in, or since, the Secrecy Act in the 70s, where KYC, AML started getting forced on companies, and like the cost it adds to companies, the burden it adds to individuals to give up their information, and then that information getting leaked and their identities getting stolen, their credit cards being spent by criminals. Like, there's got to be a better way. I think the authorities that are pushing these compliance regulations via KYC and AML need to look in the mirror and say, hey, this actually isn't working. Because I think the stat that was floating around a year or two ago was like, I think KYC AML policies have stopped something like 0.1% of global money laundering flows. Like, it's completely ineffective. Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Like, it's, their track record is not good. They think that by implementing more controls, it's going to get better. I don't think that it is. That's just my personal opinion. And I think, honestly, like, this is how it, it comes back to me, right? Sometimes there's no good solution. sometimes you're just confronted with two bad choices. And at that point, you have to make a choice of which is the lesser, of the evils, right? And I think right now, we know KYC AML is failing and it's not going to get better. And we also know that by pushing these policies, we're leaving over 50% of the world's population in serious financial trouble. And so we got to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, we tried it. It didn't work. Let's at least get 50% of the world's population on board. Like, come on, it's only going to raise the standard of living for everybody, right? It's going to make the world a better place, right? We want to, start to worry about pollution and carbon emissions and all of this stuff. I'm all for it. Let's have those conversations, but first let's lift the people, out of poverty. And we don't have to lift them. People will lift themselves. We just have to let them
lift themselves.
Like let the guy help himself, right? Don't, and because that's kind of like the countries I come from. We really see that, like it's close to the surface. Like here in the U.S. or in Europe, Western Europe, it's a bit more like disassociated, right? But we see the effects of these policies like up close and personal. Like, for example, myself, because it's not just about payments, it's about financial inclusion. That means also financial products. I cannot open a brokerage account unless I'm a multimillionaire that has a private banking relationship. If I'm from Guatemala, I cannot open a brokerage account to buy and sell stock.
So you're just cut out.
Cut out. And nobody takes my business.
No. And somebody of your profile here in the United States has that access immediately. Yeah. And so, I mean, going on or pulling on that thread, like these services are needed in places like Guatemala and elsewhere in the world where many people are unbanked. Is that where you guys are seeing a lot of activity, a lot of traction?
Honestly, and this is very encouraging to see, we see this as a global movement. So yes, we're getting a lot of clients and interest from LATAM, but we're also getting a lot of clients and interest from, let's call it the global north, right? I think things are more challenging for companies in the global north due to, restrictions and regulations and whatnot. So they're probably going to be a lot slower to move on this. But the interest is there on both sides. I think this is a global movement.
Yeah,
I really do.
And we can cut this out if it's not public. I'm pretty sure it is, though. But you guys are doing some big things in Mexico. Right?
Oh yeah. No, I think we made an announcement in the. I don't think I know because I did it. I was on
in
stage,
Miami, yeah,
announcing our partnership with Grupo Salinas, and it's a very exciting. I think Mexico really is going to be, or has the potential to be, the first big economy to adopt Lightning at a large scale. And I've been having conversations. I actually flew in from Mexico yesterday because I was in Mexico just starting to get these conversations rolling on, let's really leverage this technology to see how far we can push it and how many people we can empower financially.
And so what is the partnership with Grupo Salinas? What are you guys about to roll out in Mexico?
Well, they already rolled out the ability for their customers in Total Play, which is an internet, cable, and phone company, to pay their bills with it. I know that they are going to be rolling out throughout pretty much all of their conglomerate. This is going to take a bunch of months. So what I can tell you is expect to have more announcements coming from Mexico in the short term, because we still don't know exactly like timeframes and stuff, but we do know there's a big push around really leveraging this technology and all of its efficiencies to, at the end of the day, deliver better customer experience and empower people financially. Because there's a lot of very interesting things we can do on Lightning beyond just payments.
What are you getting at there?
Well, not there's this I can say, because there's already some people working on this. I'm talking about leveraging Lightning as a settlement network. Well, beyond payments, what else needs settlement? Well, every financial transaction needs settlement. So we're talking about digital assets and the like.
Okay. So would you leverage something like Taro for that, or?
Right now, the two main projects are Taro, which I believe we should stop using.
Why is that?
I think they had a cease and desist.
Oh, the name Taro. Yes. Yeah. Taro Labs hit them with
now
a
it's
cease and
like
desist.
now it's like Taproot, something asset register. I don't know, but we got to figure out that name, and then the guys over at RGB as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, RGB is not talked about as much, but it is very interesting.
RGB is kind of like the open source version of Taproot asset.
Yeah. And so do you think because there's not a touchy subject, but people have very strong opinions on both sides. Like, do we need to put these financial assets on Lightning?
Yes, we do.
You think so?
Oh, 100%. Like, there's the people who argue against it don't understand the nature of financial assets or the nature of Lightning and settlement networks.
What are their biggest misconceptions, do you think?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is we got to understand why financial assets are important, right? And specifically, sophisticated financial products. The whole reason they exist is to connect, let's call it lazy capital, so capital that's just lying around, with good ideas. That's what Wall Street was basically built on. And it's super important because in the measure that you as an economy are efficient in making these connections, the, let's say, economic ceiling of the participants of that economy raises considerably.
Yeah.
This is why the US is the richest country in the world right now, because you guys are the most efficient at connecting lazy capital with good ideas. And this is why you have, like them or not, the Amazons, the Facebooks, and you can say whatever you want about, the evilness of Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or whatever. But everybody's life today in the US is multiples better than it was before they were around. Like, there's no argument here.
And globally.
I mean,
we're looking.
Yeah.
We're using a MacBook here.
Yeah.
Here's
yeah. We use these products daily, and they just make your life better. They raise the standard of living, and this was feasible because of sophisticated financial products. Like, for example, I like to explain to people, like, do you know why there could never be, let's say, a Google born in Guatemala?
I do not.
Because you cannot manage the risk. Because we don't have the sophisticated financial products to do so. So Google is such a risky endeavor, right? Because back when it started, like, you didn't even know how is it going to get monetized. What's the business model? What business model, right? Like, they just have users, but nobody's paying for search, right? Nobody's paying for this. And it needed a lot of money, and it needed multiple billions of dollars to actually get to where it is today. And the people that put up that money were investors. But when you're investing multiple billions of dollars, even billionaires cannot handle that risk. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle it? The only way you can is by distributing that risk over enough people, enough investors, that it's actually manageable for each one, mm-hmm. right? And the only way to do that, have such a wide investor base, is by having sophisticated financial products. It's impossible otherwise. To give you another example, right now we took in money from VCs. Where are these VCs? They're US, Canada, Europe. Mm-hmm. Why didn't we raise money in Guatemala? Because we couldn't. Our company today is too risky for Guatemala. So now we're a US company, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, so like the financialization on Taro could add like sophisticated products that people can tap into to grow their businesses locally. But then on top of that, like you have essentially a stable banking layer via Bitcoin. And
yeah. And then the other thing, and this is why I say like why it is necessary and why it's actually convenient, is what happens when it's this, everything is running on the same settlement layer. What happens is everything gets super efficient. Mm-hmm. So you can have very, very interesting, new types of securities. Like, for example, let's say, or new financial products. Like, for example, let's say your podcast wants to take in investors, but instead of, doing whole P&L and stuff, right? You say, we'll take in money, but what we'll do is we'll give everybody a percentage of the revenue that comes in.
Yeah.
And because all of your revenue is going to be collected in Lightning in Bitcoin over Lightning, right? It can now automatically get split off and delivered to anybody that, holds one of your, financial products.
Yeah.
In real time. And so anybody that, buys this or invests in you guys would be able to see revenue streaming in real time immediately into their own wallets.
Yeah.
At no cost.
We could do this right now with podcasting 2.0. I can just go into the back end of the wallet and change the splits and boom. Like that's the, I completely agree. Like that's the future of things that are, it's possible right now.
Yeah.
Technically.
Well, there's a couple of things, like, for example, you still don't have the digital assets technology like fully vetted, because you need to vet it. So that you need to, but it's going to happen quickly enough.
Yeah. That's the other thing with Taro, or whether it's Taro or RGB, a combination of both. Like, mm-hmm. Again, we're still so early, like the infrastructure needs to be built out. Like wallets need to be able to send and receive the particular assets running over these networks. And yeah. And so on that note too, like how early do you think we are? Like,
I think right now, because it's interesting. I think right now, if we were to kind of say, okay, Lightning, we're a human, right? So mm-hmm. How old is it? I think right now we're like just about to enter teenagehood, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say between 10 and 12 years old, and just
preteens.
Preteens, kind of wanting to break out, feeling independent enough to be dangerous to himself as well as others. But, kind of like going into that stage where we're actually going to be growing fast. And by the way, each year in Lightning feels like 5 years in any other industry.
Why do you say that?
Because it just moves so fast.
Yeah.
Like every day, it's like, I was talking with a friend the other day that's also in Lightning and Bitcoin, and we're like, oh, when did we see each other? Like, oh, like 2 months ago. I thought I hadn't seen him for like 6-7 months. Like, yeah, so much has happened. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, again, like here at the park this week, I think it's indicative of that. There's so many people here to talk about Lightning specifically, and all the things going on. You have different wallets spinning up, like infrastructure providers like you guys. Like that's the other thing too. There's like enough niches that people have identified within Lightning to dedicate like their energy at, like whether it's Lightning service providers, enterprise.
Well, yeah, not only that, when you're saying adoption, right? So I did this kind of thought experiment. If, let's say, every Fortune 500 company today decides they need their own Lightning solution or strategy, right? How long would it take us to onboard them? Not Ibex, I mean, every Lightning company out there helping the Fortune 500 people. It would take at least 5 years.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Like, we need a lot more developers, a lot more talent coming into the space. We need not only, the technical people, we need people from legal profession, so for compliance and stuff, because we're gonna get asked that. Again, if we're going mainstream, like it or not, we need to, engage with, these players. We have to have people from design, marketing, all of this. And we need to educate a lot more. And we're very, like, sometimes, I feel like when we're in these events and as cool as they are, once you like step outside, so actually
you step outside, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? So we were all jamming. It was good.
Yeah. Like, no, we were actually, somebody made this analogy which I thought was perfect, right? So let's say Michael Saylor goes to a Bitcoin event and he has to walk around with security and everything, right? And everybody's like, and rightfully so. The guy's brilliant. But if you were to drop Michael Saylor into any shopping mall in America,
you'd be able to walk free.
Right. Yeah, just no attention paid. Absolutely zero.
Yeah.
No, I don't know who that is.
No, but I agree. We need more talent. And that's actually been one of the most encouraging things of this bear market, particularly. I've been around since 2013, so I've seen my fair share of bear markets, and I don't think there's been any that compare to this in terms of people in different industries deciding, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go work in Bitcoin because it makes sense to me, and it hasn't died. Like the amount of talent that has come in from other industries during the bear market has been incredible. And
more diverse talent. We're seeing a shift away from like what was predominantly engineering talent into these other, let's call it softer type of professions. So HR, a lot of HR Bitcoin companies coming up online, right? Design, a lot of design people are coming in and reaching out. So to me, it's very encouraging. I also like to say Bitcoin doesn't have bear markets. Bitcoin has bull markets and build markets. And it's actually important because also having gone through a few of this, when Bitcoin price starts to pick up and it's a bull market, you cannot get a lot of work done.
It's very distracting.
It's very distracting, and you get so many calls and stuff that it's very difficult to like build.
Yeah. Well, as somebody running a business in the space, like how do you prepare your team mentally? Because that's one thing that I think we do need to get better at as an industry, is not getting too distracted in the bear market. It's like, or the bull market, and like setting expectations for people, like it's going to happen at some point. Prepare mentally. And when it does come, like you can't get too distracted. We have to like batten down the hatches and really double down here.
Yeah. Well, when it's a bull market, it's very hard. It's easier, oddly enough, it's easier in the bear market because the price is so sad that you just don't look at it. But when it's a bull market, it's even distracting because you just get so many calls. You've been through this. Like when it's a bull market, people that hadn't talked to you in 5 years start calling you.
That's why
blowing you up.
That's why this podcast exists. I started the newsletter, which led to the podcast. The newsletter started because I was getting so many texts and emails and calls. People hit me up. I was like, all right, there's too many of you. I'm going to write this newsletter. Go read it, and you'll learn about Bitcoin.
Yeah. And that's what happens in bull markets. It's not even, it's too hard to get away from the noise in bull markets. So, you do try to explain this is what's going to happen, but honestly, only experience. So the people that have been in the company through bull markets before, they kind of like get a lot better at managing it. Like the newbies, it's just like,
yeah. We'll see if Caps Odell comes back in the next bull market. Yeah. He gets Matt loves his bull markets.
Yeah.
Stay humble, stack sats is his mantra, but in the bull market, he lets loose a little bit.
Yeah.
We all do. I mean, it is. I mean, we're ripping right now. We're just ripped past 31,000.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ripple.
Yeah. Well, somebody was saying, wait till the BlackRock ETF comes online.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to get approved?
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. It's like the third time that people are going for ETFs. I think first ETF idea was floated around like 2015 or
the Winklevi really thought they're going to get
something like that. Didn't go through. Then in 2017, 16. I forget now. Long time ago. Yeah. In Bitcoin terms. Then the GBTC came along, right? Grayscale. And I was going to say no to BlackRock.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that they're going to get turned around. I mean, they're 575 or 576 in terms of filings that have gotten approved. So
this is not.
For just looking at the stats, they're literally almost batting 1,000. So
yeah, so right now, I do think it's going to get approved. And when that comes online, what we don't realize is the amount of capital that somebody like this is able to deploy. It's never been seen in Bitcoin.
No,
never. And we're talking right now. What are we? A little bit over $500 billion, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
And
approaching 600 billion.
Yeah. And the other thing is we have to understand how market works, that price is not the price of every Bitcoin that's out there, right? It's just what's being traded.
Float, yeah.
It's the float on the exchanges, right? Which is a small percentage of the amount of Bitcoin that is out there. So it doesn't take a lot of money to move this price. And by a lot, we're talking multiple millions of dollars, people. So let's put it in context, right?
Yeah.
It's not that it's, but not a lot of money in the financial industry means $100 million. You suddenly dump $100 million into Bitcoin. That floor starts to raise quick.
And you start doing that once a day, once a week. BlackRock won't be the only one. BlackRock comes in, gets approved, sends a signal to the market, like high net worth individuals, family offices, pensions, the like, just start, all right, I guess we're going to get exposure.
Yeah. Well, and you have these smaller players like us. We actually have a digital wealth management division where we educate, high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals in Central America and Latin America. And, we're doing road shows. There's very interesting financial products that are coming online with regards to Bitcoin. And this last roadshow, which still is ongoing, but has been, started last week, the feedback we've gotten has been super positive.
What in what way are people like, oh, I get it now, like I'm ready?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you for explaining Bitcoin in a way I could understand it and make sense financially.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing, right? Whenever you're investing, you don't invest in what you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And previously, and I've been, guilty of this. So as Bitcoiners, we've been too technical in our explanation. But, like a friend likes to say, I use the internet. I don't know how TCP/IP works.
Yeah.
Like, why are you explaining this?
Yeah.
And so we go in and we explain the use case and the technology and why it's important, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they really respond to this. They really respond. And like, there for sure are dumb people with money, but by and large, the people that are self-made, self-starters, and these are not dumb individuals.
Yeah. They got there for a reason.
Yeah, they got there for a reason. And if you go with, the thing is that Bitcoin is not on their radar day to day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you manage to sit down with them and you have an hour-long presentation, you explain it to them in terms that are familiar to them. So you don't go in and I don't throw words like HTLCs and stuff around. I shy away from any of the.
What do you know about SHA-256 hash?
Yeah, any of the jargon. I just explain. Once they get the concept and they want to dig deeper into the nitty-gritty of the technology, then you explain it. But by and large, they're not that interested in how it works, but they want to know why and the value prop, and that becomes really easy to explain.
Yeah. And that's one thing I wonder, because again, we'll be 15 years into the white paper this October.
Mm-hmm.
So a decade and a half. It's a lot of time in the digital age. Like, is this, and probably just going to jinx myself, but it feels like, especially with like the Black Rocks of the world entering,
Mm-hmm.
like, is this the cycle where we don't look behind? And it's an idea that is undeniable and something that people can't ignore anymore.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about that. I don't know who has this quote. Maybe you remember who said it, but nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do feel that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And, it's, that being said, it's not like, the time comes and suddenly we're, at $1 million for each Bitcoin or something like that. It's not that, but it's when it becomes entrenched sufficiently that it's just never going to go away.
Yeah.
And I do think we're dangerously close to that. Like Bitcoin going to zero, probably after, the BlackRocks of the world and, financial institutions come in. Seriously, no, it doesn't happen. And yeah, I agree with you on that. The price still will have its ups and downs, but by and large, it'll get adopted. Another friend I was talking to was actually making this analogy. Back in the 80s, encryption was actually what was it? State weapon or secret?
I think DARPA or the NSA. Like,
yeah, but it was like property of the
weapons grade technology.
Weapons grade technology, exactly. Mm-hmm. So encryption was weapons grade technology until PGP, pretty good privacy, came along, right? And there was this huge lawsuit, and the thing that PGP did to kind of, the trump card was they published the code in a book.
Mm-hmm. And put it on T-shirts too, right?
Yeah. And at that point, it became a freedom of speech, subject. But even after that, and after the Department of Defense lost the lawsuit because they did lose. Even after, it wasn't like it was pretty tough to use PGP.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were hassled and frowned upon and everything, but then the banks realized, with this, we can have open banking standards because the transmission of information can be secure, and we can do this and we can do that, and we can make, our operations more efficient, and and they saw this use case, right, for the encryption technology. And then all of that pushback against encryption just evaporated, went away. Today, nobody even talks about encryption, right? Like, we know we have to encrypt stuff. And if the Lightning technology becomes entrenched in, financial institutions, the narrative will change completely around all of this technology. Because if they start making money with Lightning, and I know they will,
this game. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. It weaponizes human greed to create this system that can't be corrupted.
Yeah. No, it's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome what you're building. I'm pumped that we got to do this in person. It's much better in person than through the laptop screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when I'm in places with crappy internet, which happens quite often.
Yeah. Well, what else should we end it on? Anything else that we didn't touch on that you think we should wrap up here?
If I can ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
What are you most looking forward to with A, Bitcoin, and then B, Lightning?
Bitcoin, something I've been obsessed with for the last 5 years in the mining industry. That's another thing. Like you talk about financial industries getting in, the financial industry getting in, and institutions getting drawn by the asset of Bitcoin as a hard asset. That could be a store of value. It's certainly good, but I think equally as important is the energy sector getting mining as an additive feature to their operational stack. And that's the most exciting thing to me in Bitcoin right now is the convergence of the energy sector with Bitcoin mining, working in a symbiotic relationship to make Bitcoin more secure and make our energy infrastructure more secure, efficient, reliable, and robust. And then Lightning, I think this AI stuff is going to be big. I think the timing of where Lightning is at its maturation process and the nascency of the AI industry creates an environment where I would imagine the AI industry is more willing to experiment with new things that are additive. It's sort of like a tabula rasa that people can build new processes and design features into. And I think the convergence of AI and the Lightning Network is just a no-brainer, especially considering that they're extremely capital-intensive businesses for all the GPUs they need to set up. And so like chargeback risk for them is pretty massive. And so it would make sense out of the gate for them to align with a payments network like Lightning to prevent that risk, because they probably have very thin margins with which they can play with.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on that, because you can't adopt a payments technology that has chargebacks if you're going to be doing transactions less than 5 cents.
Yeah, no,
can't handle chargeback.
Yeah, and you can create. I mean, that's the panel I'm about to lead here at 4 p.m. today is AI and the Lightning Network, and like it works both ways. Like the AI industry is all about building these large language models, and what do they need for those models? They need a bunch of data. One way to get the data is to pay people to feed data into the LLM, and you can pay a global workforce over the Lightning Network, microtransactions for completing tasks that adds data to the LLM. And then on the front end, so that's the back end, and then on the front end, consumers like myself, I use Midjourney for the newsletter to create our thumbnails. Like instead of paying a monthly fee using a credit card, I would love to go into my account and generate an image and pay over the Lightning Network for the exact image that I'm getting. And just get
pay per image.
Pay per image. Like makes sense on their end to reduce the chargeback risk, to allow themselves to build the LLM models, and then on my end as a consumer to get the lowest cost possible for the value they're providing me.
And not only that, like being able to transact value for value. Okay, I'm receiving this product, I'm paying for it, and that's it. We don't need to have anything else happen between us, right? Like I'll pay you as long as I like your product, and when I don't,
when I'm not using it, I'm not.
Thank you.
I mean, say I write 3 to 5 newsletters a week, so that's 12 to 20 a month. So I'm using it 20 times a month. Like I should probably be paying maybe less than $5 for those images. Probably paying $20 a month now.
So yeah, no, I agree. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I especially like the part about Bitcoin with miners and the energy sector. I think I've always thought this. I think that Bitcoin enables a nuclear energy future.
Agreed.
And I think people, I'm scared about what's going to happen with the Oppenheimer movie now, to be honest. But people need to really understand that nuclear energy is the best source of energy we have by far. Like, it's not even close. Like, in terms of cleanliness, in terms of efficiency,
density,
all of it is just like miles better than anything else out there. But it does come at a significant, there is a significant issue, which is a nuclear reactor cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
So you need somebody that's a captive client of the nuclear plant that is going to consume anything that the nuclear power plant produces.
Mm-hmm.
And those are Bitcoin miners, because they will stabilize your demand.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And I think we're going to win that narrative. I think it's becoming abundantly clear that
we should.
Yeah.
Like, if, we need to get more engineers in politics. That's my philosophy.
We just need to let the politicians let the engineers do their job and stop getting in the way.
Well, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah. Jose, it's been a pleasure, sir. It's great to see you in person.
Yeah, no, same, likewise.
Yeah, I'm pumped for what you guys are doing at Ibex. It's really exciting, and I think it's a very important part of the industry. Like, really, again, the niche that you're working in, going after the enterprise level and trying to really get them to understand Bitcoin and then incorporate it into their business is extremely high leverage for making sure that Bitcoin's successful in the long run.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for the words, Marty.
Wow.
And no, but listen, I'm also kind of like, we appreciate what you guys do so much as well. So, getting the word out there and, getting exposure for all of the Bitcoin projects that are available. And, it's very interesting times, very exciting. It's, I can't wait to read the story.
Right.
Yeah.
The old men sitting in leather chairs reading the story, like, that was pretty cool what we did there.
Yeah. Like, I remember that guy. What happened?
We're all in this together. That's the beauty of it. And that's why I love events like this, because it gets everybody building in the space together. And it's said often, but can't be overstated. It's just like the people in this industry are pure, and it's really fun seeing everybody work together. Everybody wants to help each other out and lift each other up. And it's a massive problem that we're all working to solve. And the people and their individual efforts, and then the collaboration across efforts, is something special that I think we'll look back when we're reading that book and cherish that we had the opportunity to take part in it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So we should get up there and join our...
I think we should.
Okay.
I think we hidden away long enough.
All right. That's all we got today, freaks. Peace and love. Thank you.